Welcome to the good old era. Ready to burn rubber with a legend? Smokey and the Bandit isn't just a movie. It's a 1977 joyride that roared into history with high-speed chases, outlaw swagger, and lines you're still quoting. Ever wondered what went down behind the scenes of this beer smuggling, cop-dodging classic? From Burt Reynolds' charm to that iconic Trans Am, we're peeling out with 10 strange but true facts that'll blow your mind. Fact 1. The script was written in just 5 days. Let's kick this off with a fact that'll blow your mind. The screenplay for Smokey and the Bandit was written in 5 days flat. That's right. 5 days to create a blockbuster that grossed over $126 million. Here's the story. Hal Needham, a legendary stuntman making his first stab at directing, was crashing at Burt Reynolds' guest house in the mid-70s. One day, he noticed how crazy people were about Coors beer. Back then, Coors was like liquid gold, illegal to sell east of the Mississippi because it required refrigerated transport and didn't use preservatives. This sparked a wild idea: a movie about smuggling 400 cases of Coors from Texas to Georgia in 28 hours, dodging cops the whole way. Needham, who'd never written a script before, teamed up with writer Robert L. Levy and hammered out a rough draft in less than a week. The script wasn't a polished novel. It was more like a roadmap, a loose guide for the chaos to come. Burt Reynolds later said in interviews, half the dialogue was made up in the car. The fast-paced writing mirrored the film's off-the-cuff energy. Needham, a guy who'd spent his career jumping off buildings and crashing cars, leaned on instinct and humor. He wasn't trying to make high art. He just wanted to have fun, and it showed. The Coors smuggling plot wasn't just a gimmick. It was rooted in reality. In the 1970s, Coors' limited distribution made it a status symbol in the East, and real-life bootleggers would make runs across state lines, much like the Bandit. This gave the film an authentic edge. The rushed timeline could have been a disaster, but it gave Smokey its spontaneous spark. Audiences loved the raw, unpolished vibe, and the film's chaotic energy came straight from that 5-day writing sprint. It's proof that sometimes the best ideas come fast and furious. Fact 2. Jackie Gleason improvised his iconic role. If you've ever quoted, "There is no way that you could come from my loins," you've got Jackie Gleason to thank. Most of Sheriff Buford T. Justice's lines were completely improvised. Gleason, a comedy legend from the Honeymooners, brought his A-game to this role. Director Hal Needham, knowing Gleason's genius, gave him total freedom. No script, no problem. Lines like, "What we're dealing with here is a complete lack of respect for the law," and "I'm gonna barbecue your ass in molasses" weren't written. They just poured out of Gleason's mouth on set. The crew struggled to keep straight faces during his takes. One iconic scene, where Buford orders a Diablo sandwich and a Dr. Pepper, was shot in one take, totally ad-libbed. Gleason even modeled Buford after a real Florida highway patrolman he'd met, giving the character an authentic Southern swagger. His chemistry with Mike Henry, who played Junior, came from their real-life friendship and perfect comedic timing. Needham later said, "You couldn't write what Jackie said and you wouldn't want to." That unpredictability made Buford a fan favorite. Fans on X are still quoting Buford 45 years later, and it's no wonder why. Gleason's performance wasn't just funny, it was slightly dangerous, like he could snap at any moment. That edge made Buford more than a cartoon villain. He was the perfect foil to the Bandit's cool, and Gleason's improv skills turned him into one of cinema's most iconic sheriffs. Imagine anyone else in that role? Impossible. Fact 3. Burt Reynolds almost turned it down. Here's a shocker. Burt Reynolds, the heart and soul of Smokey and the Bandit, almost said no to the role. Reynolds, already a megastar from Deliverance and The Longest Yard, wasn't sold on a movie about smuggling beer and dodging cops. He thought it sounded like a B-movie at best. But Hal Needham, his longtime friend and stunt double, wouldn't take no for an answer. Needham showed up with a rough script and said, "Trust me, Burt, this'll be a blast." Reynolds finally agreed, mostly as a favor. That decision changed everything. Smokey and the Bandit grossed over $126 million, over $600 million in 2025 dollars, making it the second highest grossing film of 1977, just behind Star Wars. Reynolds became Hollywood's top box office draw for 5 straight years. He later called it the most fun he ever had on a set, loving the loose vibe where he could improvise and play off Jackie Gleason and Sally Field. Speaking of Sally, their real-life romance added authentic chemistry to their scenes, which we'll get to later. Reynolds even regretted turning down a sequel idea later on, calling it one of his biggest career mistakes. But Smokey made him a household name, blending his charm, humor, and that iconic mustache into the ultimate action hero. It's wild to think one nudge from a friend turned a reluctant, maybe into a cultural juggernaut. Fact 4. The Trans Am became a pop culture icon. Let's talk about the real star of the show, that black and gold 1977 Pontiac Trans Am. This car didn't just steal scenes, it became a pop culture icon. Before Smokey, Trans Am sales were sluggish. After the film hit theaters, Pontiac saw a 30% sales spike, moving 68,745 units in 1978 alone. Dealerships couldn't keep them on the lot. Kids plastered Trans Am posters on their walls, and grown adults dreamed of driving like the Bandit. Fun fact, the movie used a 1976 model with a 1977 front end because Pontiac couldn't deliver the newer cars in time for filming. The production went through several Trans Ams, most wrecked in stunts like high-speed chases and jumps. Only one survived in drivable condition, and it was restored and sold at auction in 2016 for over $500,000, with Burt Reynolds signing the dashboard. He called it like seeing an old friend. Pontiac even gifted Needham a Trans Am after the film's success, and Burt bought one for himself. No CGI, no fancy mods, just raw horsepower, a killer paint job, and that unforgettable growl. The Trans Am wasn't just a prop, it was the Bandit's soul, and it helped sell thousands of cars without saying a word. Today, it's one of the most iconic movie cars ever, right up there with the Back to the Future DeLorean. Fact 5. Sally Field fought for her role. She almost didn't get the part. Studio execs, used to her light comedy roles in Gidget and The Flying Nun, didn't think she had the look for a romantic lead. They wanted someone flashier, but Burt Reynolds wasn't having it. He insisted Sally was perfect, saying she could match him line for line with her wit and charm. The studio finally relented, and thank goodness they did. Field's chemistry with Reynolds was electric, partly because they were dating in real life. Their natural banter and improvised moments made every scene pop. The runaway bride storyline was expanded after her casting to give her more to work with, and she nailed it, bringing depth to a role that could have been pure fluff. Field later said Burt gave her the confidence to take risks on camera. That role changed how Hollywood saw her, paving the way for her to win 2 Oscars for Norma Ray in 1979 and Places in the Heart in 1984. Without Sally, Smokey would have missed its emotional core. She proved she could hang with the boys, steal the spotlight, and make us all root for the Bandit's leading lady. Fact 6. Guerrilla-style car chases. Those pulse-pounding car chases? They were as real as it gets. Many of Smokey and the Bandit's iconic stunts were filmed guerrilla-style. No permits, no road closures, just pure adrenaline. Hal Needham, a former stuntman who doubled for stars like John Wayne, coordinated the chases himself. The crew would scout rural roads and highways, set up cameras, shoot fast, and peel out before local police could shut them down. Talk about living the Bandit life. Needham used walkie-talkies and spotters to monitor traffic and keep the crew safe. Burt Reynolds even drove in some scenes, though pros handled the riskier stunts. One standout moment, the Trans Am jumping a broken bridge, required perfect timing and speed. The car was totaled on landing, but that shot made the final cut. Needham called it the most satisfying crash I've ever filmed. Miraculously, no one was seriously hurt, though the lack of permits kept everyone on edge. That raw, unpolished danger gave the chases their heart-pounding authenticity. Fact 7. Jerry Reed's rise to stardom. Jerry Reed was only supposed to write the theme song, but he became the heart of the film as Cletus, Snowman Snow. When casting for the trucker sidekick fell through, Hal Needham looked at Reed and said, "You're the guy." Reed, a country music star, had acted before but never in a role this big. He brought authentic Southern charm, real CB radio lingo, and even his basset hound, Fred, to the set. Reed improvised many of his lines, adding slang like 10 to 4 and breaker breaker that truckers actually used. He even drove his own truck in scenes and did minor stunts. His song, Eastbound and Down, was written overnight and hit number 2 on the Billboard country charts in 1977, becoming a country classic. Fred, the dog, was Reed's idea, giving Snowman a loyal sidekick that fans adored. Reed later said the film changed his life, introducing him to a new audience. He toured with a Smokey-themed truck and played the song at every concert. Fact 8. A blockbuster out of nowhere. Nobody saw this coming. Smokey and the Bandit was a low-budget underdog that became a massive hit. Made for just $4.3 million, it was expected to appeal only to Southern audiences. Instead, it grossed $126 million, over $600 million today, making it 1977's second-highest grossing film, behind only Star Wars. Drive-in theaters saw record crowds, with fans returning to memorize jokes and chases. Critics like Roger Ebert gave it 2 stars, but audiences didn't care. They loved the humor and horsepower. The film's success sparked a wave of car chase comedies in the late 70s and early 80s, like The Cannonball Run. It also solidified Burt Reynolds as the decade's biggest star. Paramount, caught off guard, rushed to print more film reels and greenlit sequels before the first film even left theaters. Smokey proved you didn't need lasers or spaceships to pack theaters. Just charisma, a fast car, and a little law-breaking. Fact 9. The CB radio revolution. This fact's a game-changer. Smokey and the Bandit sparked a CB radio revolution. CB radios were already popular with truckers, but after the film, sales exploded to 10 million units a year by 1977. Kids begged for CB sets for Christmas, and families adopted slang like 10 to 4, breaker breaker, and Smokey for cops. The FCC had to issue guidelines to manage frequency congestion. That's how wild it got. The film romanticized trucker culture, turning truck stops into cultural hubs. Restaurants offered CB specials, and car makers like Ford started installing CB radios as factory options. Jerry Reed and Burt Reynolds made trucker lingo mainstream, and fans on X still use terms like "good buddy" today. Smokey didn't just sell tickets, it changed how America talked on the road, making CB radios a symbol of freedom and rebellion. Fact 10. Hitchcock's editor shaped the film. Here's a wild crossover. Fact 10 reveals that Smokey and the Bandit was edited by a guy who worked with Alfred Hitchcock. Walter Hanneman, fresh off Hitchcock's Family Plot, brought his razor-sharp skills to Needham's chaotic footage. With no strict script, Hanneman was the unsung hero in the editing room, tightening the pacing and crafting iconic stinger transitions between jokes and chases. His work gave the film its fast, snappy feel, influencing later comedies like The Blues Brothers. Reynolds said, "He made the movie faster than it was." Hanneman saw similarities between Hitchcock's tension and Smokey's action, blending highbrow editing with lowbrow humor. Needham gave him full freedom, saying, "He knew what to cut, I just knew what to blow up." It's proof that even a redneck comedy needs a master editor to keep the wheels spinning. Bonus fact: Burt's Trans Am gift to Needham. We've got one more for the road, a bonus fact. After filming Wrapped, Burt Reynolds gifted Hal Needham a Trans Am as a thank you for their friendship and the film's success. This wasn't a wrecked stunt car, it was a pristine symbol of their bond. Needham treated it like a trophy, occasionally driving it to car shows. After his passing in 2013, the car resurfaced, was authenticated, and sold for over $500,000 at auction in 2016, with Burt signing the dashboard and sharing set stories. This Trans Am, never used in jumps, is one of cinema's most iconic vehicles, now in a private collection. It's not just memorabilia, it's a piece of movie history with horsepower and heart. Reynolds said seeing it again was like reuniting with an old friend. Talk about a gift that keeps on giving. That's a wrap, good buddies. 10 strange but true facts that prove Smokey and the Bandit is a timeless rebel. From a script scribbled in 5 days to a CB craze that changed America, this film's got more heart than a V8 engine. What's your favorite moment? Buford's rants? The Trans Am's growl? Or Snowman's loyal dog Fred? Drop it in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe to keep the Bandit's legacy alive. Share this with your crew, and let's keep the highway hot.